Anyways, welcome back, everybody, to Out at Reese's podcast. I'm your host, Reese Shalvis. And joining me on the podcast once again, we got a friend of mine, success coach, podcaster, and now a public speaker, Braiden Belnap.
Thanks so much, man.
How you doing, man?
Doing good. It's
I'm
so
so
good
glad.
to be back on.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back on. I've been thinking about it for a while. I was like, man, I'd love to get Braiden back on.
It's crazy that that's the first time we met, and now since then we became great friends.
Yeah, here we are. He also is my success coach. You usually do those coach meetings every Monday, but
Yeah.
you said those are going away for a while.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's transitioning into big things. Not that that wasn't a big thing. It took a lot of time, and I'm so grateful to see people's lives change.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just time to take things to the next level, you could say.
Definitely, and especially for yourself, that's huge. You just got so much going on that you just don't really have time for it either. But you said they'll be back one day, right?
Yes.
That'll
So,
be cool.
I mean, full vulnerability. That's how I made. I'm dropping, a 5-figure income. No, sorry. Yeah, 5-figure income. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it was, not gonna lie, I've thought about that for a while.
Really?
But it was almost like an obligation
Right.
because I saw how much people's lives changed in the group. The people that really dedicates them to the group of coaching and just coaching in general, their lives change.
I could tell it just being in part of those Monday groups every Monday is, I could tell who were the ones that were the most serious, and I'm like, dang, like that's motivating me to see that all these just this whole group of just passionate people coming together. That alone is just so inspiring. It definitely helped me a lot to keep going.
Absolutely.
Especially when everyone would talk about their wins at the end of the week, and I have a hard time seeing when I have a win, and so I wouldn't really say much at that, but seeing everyone else's wins, it's like I gotta keep going too. Like I gotta keep pushing and going.
Absolutely. So it was almost a sacrifice for the now to make a bigger impact in the future.
Yeah, and that's definitely worth it. It's definitely a lot of value in for the potential that whatever you got going on now, and then eventually when you get back to it.
Absolutely.
So I totally agree with that.
It'll be back though. It'll be back some point.
So can you tell us what do you got going on? If for what you're willing to share.
I'm just such an open book.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it comes down to growing the online community in the sense that we have the coaching community, but this is really just growing the online community. So one, I'm looking to just build my audience online from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, making more quality content.
Right.
Two, I'm going to launch a book series and looking to, and that's a big reason why I dropped that is I've been wanting to rewrite my book for a while now.
Yeah, the Journey to Prosper.
Yeah. And this will allow for me to launch the book series. So I believe there's 7 steps to transform your life. Mm-hmm. So first book, which is just going to be a rewrite of the first version, is going to be the aspect of how to live a general prosperous, transformative life. And then each book following that, which will be another 7 books, is going to go into detail with every single step.
So it'll be it'll basically take your Journey to Prosper book, split it up amongst 7 books in a lot more detailed depth.
Yeah. And
just impactful for anybody reading them.
Yep.
I like that. I actually really like that a lot. That's a really good idea.
And then it'll be taking the podcast to a next level. That's been growing, thankfully.
I saw you redid your set.
Yeah, redoing the set, cover, name, everything's changing.
Yeah, I just redid my set too.
It's looking good.
Thank you.
And then events and coaching groups will come back in the future. And then I'm just going to take speaking, consulting, and one-on-one to the next level.
So are you still going to do your yearly workshops?
That I'm also going to take that away also.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Again, a big choice.
Yeah, I'm sure it was hard. That would have been really hard to make. Or maybe not.
So this is what's interesting. I think it was hard to make.
Yeah.
But I've thought about it for so long that when I made the choice, it was easy.
Okay.
So again, I've thought about it for a couple months, but the event there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like a lot of preparation. That's
the last workshop you went to. I put in a little over 30 hours.
30 hours, dang.
And that was the second one.
Yeah.
But that's just the aspect is I have such a commitment that I feel like when somebody invests into me, I want to do everything possible to give them the best experience.
Right.
And that's a good thing. I feel like I could keep the coaching group going and the events going, but I don't want to half-ass it, you know?
Right, yeah. You want to be able to put what you really want to give everyone that is investing into you, the value that
Absolutely.
that they need.
So my thought process is build the community and really just give out. I don't want to say free, but it is free. I just want to give out all the free stuff, put it out mass value, write these books, and build my community. Then at some point, my community is going to be big. The people that have read the books and they want to go deeper with me. It's like, hey, let's do this event again. Hey, let's open up that coaching group
Time
again.
to start doing that group again. I like that.
So it's an organic way to grow, I would say, than trying to force like, oh, I want to do events. I do want to do events. That's my dream. I want to do huge seminars and everything. I want to have 10,000 people in my coaching group. Like those dreams have not gone away. I just feel like I've consolidated down to do a little bit more focus on the things that will allow that community to grow. From there, the things will come more naturally.
So have you thought of, like, let's say you get to that point where you restart the groups and you're doing events again. Let's say your coaching groups on Mondays are 10,000 people. How have you thought of how you're going to manage that many people and teach that many?
Yeah, so honestly, nothing would change except that I might have a little less one-on-one time.
Right.
So instead of asking everybody their takeaways for the week and what they're going to do moving forward, maybe I still ask 10 people or so. It's just not everybody.
Right.
The other aspect is what I incorporated at the end of the coaching calls is the groups.
Right.
I would still do the groups.
Does Zoom automatically organize everybody into groups? Okay.
Yeah.
Like kind of equally.
Exactly.
Okay. That I was gonna say that'd be organizing everybody into. Yeah.
And 10,000. The way I look at this is, this sounds crazy with where we're at, but it's genuinely my goal to make an impact on 1 billion plus people. And if I have 10,000 people in my group, that means they're impacting their families, their extended family. And so 10,000, not that I'm enough by getting 10,000 people in the group. That's just where I feel like I can make a really in-depth impact on people's lives.
I like that. It definitely takes a lot. And like shooting big though, I feel like, I've always learned this growing up. The higher you shoot, the higher you'll go. Right.
Sure.
And so like to be just incredibly ambitious, I think is the best way to go about your life,
I agree. And the thing about, let's just say men, for instance, a lot of men tie their enoughness to accomplishments. I'm enough when. And I'm not saying that women don't struggle with that, but they get and I can't say this for everybody, but generally women are like, hey, you're beautiful. Hey, I think you're so amazing. Oh, I love your personality. You're funny. It's a lot less for men where I can look at you and be like, Reese, you're really a handsome dude. I will do that because I'm a little bit different.
Well, I mean, in general, guys receive a large amount less of compliments and stuff from other people than women do.
Absolutely.
Like, that's just how our society is.
Of course.
So
we're taught as men to tell your wife you're beautiful, you're sexy, you're amazing. Thanks for this, that. And it's not to say that women aren't taught to do the same for their husbands, but words of affirmation to men aren't necessarily taught as the standard.
it's a lot more ingrained into like our men's brain that this is how we need to be. And
we get pleasure from that too.
Right. Yeah. I want to be able to talk to my future family, my wife. I want to let her know she's beautiful. I want her to feel like I truly believe that.
Exactly. So for me, I'm grateful to say that the whole thing, I'm dropping a 5-figure income from the coaching group. It's quite a bit of money.
That's
So it's a huge sacrifice, but I dropped the money standpoint as I'm enough if I'm making this money, and I've turned it into impact. And I think if everybody had the mindset of just, hey, how can I make somebody's life better, the world would just be a better place.
Yeah, striving for change in the world, even if it's to like a small degree, like whatever you can do, really, I think still in the long run will have a big impact. Because like kind of like you were saying, if you even help just one person, then they're gonna bring that to their family. Their family's gonna bring that to theirs. Exactly what you were saying earlier. And so I think whether you change one person's lives or a billion people's lives, it'll still have a big impact in the long run of things.
Well, it's the hellos and the highs that make the biggest impacts in the world. So everybody, every single person, an unfortunate dynamic that we're facing in the now world, which part of it is suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that commit suicide is that if somebody just said hello or hi or gave me a sign that I was intended to be here, I wouldn't follow through. It's like, think of how much our highs and hellos and our waves can really go.
Yeah, I want exactly, like even if I'm just out in public and there's some person walking by and they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Yo, he said hi to me." Like, I don't know, it just gets my serotonin going, my dopamine. It makes me feel better. I'm like, someone actually just took their time out of their day to stop and just say hello.
Absolutely. Yesterday, and super simple, but it honestly made my night. It was already a good night, don't get me wrong. I went wreath making with my mom and my wife.
Really? That's cool.
So when one of my buddies, Porter, that just came on the podcast, he's a real estate investor and agent, and his wife is an interior designer, so did a wreath making class. So my wife went and got 3 tickets, and it wasn't intended for me to go, but I ended up going. And there was just this other girl/mom there that was like, "Hey, how are you doing? I love that you're here with all these girls making wreaths." Such a simple comment, but it made my night.
Right, yeah, no. The littlest things can really just change someone's entire night, entire day, and maybe even entire week, One thing that, now this is a little off topic, kind of on topic, but I thought this was interesting. So I've started running. I've been running for 2 months now, I think, almost. I started beginning of August, beginning of September. So yeah, a little over 2 months now. And one thing that has surprised me was every time I run by other runners, they won't even look at me.
I know.
They won't even look at me. And I'm like, I want to say hi to them. I'm genuinely like, I want to just be like, hey. Just like, even if it's just a quick wait. I don't want to stop them on their run, but just a quick, hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? But they're just, I don't know. It's weird. I was really surprised. I was like, I thought all these runners would be a little more friendly.
I agree. And this might be a different culture in outside of Utah.
Yeah, maybe.
But even when you go hiking, I just want to say hi to everybody. Hey, how's it going? That's it.
I do feel like hiking is a little better than running. Like, I usually do run into a few people that are like, hey, how's it going on the hike? And then the other half is just,
There's not a person.
It's like if they're passing on their left, they're like,
yeah. Hey, that's a pretty bird. It's like, really?
But running, not one person has been like, hey, it's crazy.
And this is what I've been trying to do, because I had the same experience. And I love that you mentioned this, because I've been thinking about this over the last week, 2 weeks. How many of the people that aren't saying hi are the ones that actually need to be told hi to?
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Because I understand the importance of saying hello, even for myself. Even if I'm the one forcing the hello, it feels good to be told hello. Honestly, community is huge. But how many of the people that are avoiding that community aspect in their life of just a hello actually need to be told hello?
That's interesting you bring that up, because, like, I have this really hard time. Like, I want to say hi to them, but when they don't even look at me, I'm, like, scared to even try to say hi, as if I'm somehow going to be some nuisance, some pest to them. You know what I mean? Which is probably not true. Most likely not true. Nobody gets upset for someone saying hi to them. But in my mind, that's kind of how it is. And so if they're not even looking at me, I don't usually, I just won't say anything. But I want to, I want to say hi. I want to wave to them at least.
Absolutely.
But and maybe you're right. Maybe that's because that's what they need. Maybe they need someone to like break that kind of barrier that they probably have set up in their mind, and they'll be like, "He just said hi to me."
Sure.
I don't know. You never know.
So I agree with, at some points you do feel like a pest. So there's a time, this last summer, so I don't even know, maybe August-ish, me and my wife and my sister went out to ice cream. And we saw this guy. He was pretty young, probably early 30s, eating ice cream alone, but he just really felt very sad. Super sad. So I was like, I need to go make sure he's okay. I said, hey, are you doing okay? He's like, yeah. And he and again, in some aspects, you do feel like a pest. But it's like, what if that guy was thinking about, hey, this is my last ice cream, and I'm gonna be done after this. How do we know? What if me going up to him say, hey, are you doing okay, is the reason that he's like, man, people do give a crap about me.
Right.
Like, I hear you, because I felt like a pest, but it's like sometimes we need to be pesty.
And if we come off that way, if to them we are a pest, you're probably never gonna see them ever again. And so it doesn't matter. Kind of doesn't matter, right?
Shoot, I'll be a pest to 9 people if it means on the 10th one I save a life.
That's a really good way to look at it. That gives me a whole new perspective just on being a pest.
Sure.
Because I want to go out and be more of a pest now. That's cool.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Because it's even friends. People get awkward, like asking, hey, are you genuinely doing okay? Or are you thinking about suicide? Like, we need to open that as an okay conversation.
Oh, definitely. There's such a big I feel like there's naturally such a kind of a stigma around talking about suicide. And like, just as an example, earlier this year, someone who's really close to me, I was talking to other people who were close to me about them. And I was straight up like so awkward to bring it up because I was so concerned for him. I was so like worried, and I was like, he might actually like need help. And so I went to my other friends, and I was like, hey, so like, I don't want to like imply that this is how he actually is feeling. But, I was very much trying to explain myself to not, because it just felt so like taboo to like talk about.
Sure.
But I was like, but then I brought up like, I think he might be suicidal. And they were straight up like, you don't gotta, like, you can say it straightforward. Like, you don't have to try to soften it and beat around the bush of talking about the subject of suicide, because
Absolutely.
It's so serious. It's such a big thing in our society that like, we need to talk about it. We need to feel comfortable opening up about it. Even if someone isn't, but we think they might be, we still got to be comfortable approaching someone or just, talking about it, because that's if people can become aware about it, that's where you can save the most lives.
Absolutely. It's just a conversation, and the thing is, suicide, relationship problems, like whatever it is, like, people like to be reached out to.
Yeah.
And if they feel pesty, as far as I'm concerned, then this might be in a negative but screw them,
Yeah.
I agree with the fact that sometimes it's hard to feel like a pest,
Right.
but in my mind it's more painful considering that somebody might go through a divorce or commit suicide. It's like, what happens if I do reach out to my friend that I think he's struggling with his relationship, and I ask him how he's doing, and then I put him and his wife on track of a right resource that helps them, and they live happily ever after.
Yeah, definitely. I have this last year, I've tried to make it a point to just like, at least every month, 2 months, maybe I could do it more, but at least every couple months I'm trying to reach out to my closest friends and family. Just, hey, you doing all right? How you doing? Like, just trying to genuinely, because I don't want it to leave on a note where it's, oh, I haven't talked to this person in months or maybe even a year. And if, say, where they were to unfortunately pass away from something, and I hadn't taken the time to at least try to maintain that contact, with them, it can be really hard, especially because you'll kind of get that feeling of guilt, like I should have reached out more, I should have done this.
Sure, absolutely.
So why not start reaching out now, while they're still here, while you still can, whether they're going through something or not, still reach out, because you never know what someone is going through.
Absolutely, and everybody has a time clock. I forget what movie it is, but it's like they have time on their wrist.
In time.
I think
that's what it's called.
Everybody has that on their wrist.
Yeah.
Some old people have more time than the young people.
Right.
Some wealthy people actually don't have that much time because they're in a ton of debt.
And it's a time we can't see either.
No. And sometimes, in some aspects, that makes it better because we're not like, I'm in a time.
Right.
But what if everybody walked around with that, like knowing, I don't know when so-and-so's time's really done.
There's literally a timer, and it's going to run out one day. You don't know when, you don't know where, and that's it.
It's so taboo to think about, though. I don't know if that's the right word. Like, I've experienced death of, like, really close people to me, which obviously it's really hard. And obviously we don't like thinking about it.
Not at all. It hurts thinking about it. I'm someone who just overthinks a lot, and, like, I'll just get anxiety, like really bad anxiety, just to the thought of, like, oh my gosh, my family's going to die one day. I'm going to experience the death of, like, pretty much my whole family if assuming I don't outlive them, or assuming I outlive them, or whatever.
Isn't that hard to comprehend?
Yeah,
like, in our minds, even thinking about it, we, like, genuinely, in some aspects, can't comprehend the hardness of that.
Yeah, it's not something like, I mean, we know our whole life growing up since we could literally start comprehending stuff, right? We know it's coming. We know people are going to die. And, like, but you don't really think about it too much until you do, right? And especially when you get older, at least for me, is when I started thinking about it a lot more. And it's like, man, everyone I know is going to die. Whether I live through some of their deaths or not, like, everybody, like, it's coming. You can't stop it.
Absolutely. And that comes down to preparing too, because think about this, right? People don't prepare. And I think that's what a reason why people struggle so much. So let's even talk day to day, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't schedule their day before. It's like, what if they started scheduling their day? They would feel a lot more structured and a lot more like, oh, I'm getting stuff done, right?
Right.
As long as they actually follow their schedule.
Yeah.
Or two, they want to go on a hike, but they don't take enough water or food or snacks. But life, people don't have life insurance. People don't have the necessary planning in place that even if they don't actually do structured planning, it's like, hey, Mom, I want you to know if I die, this is what I want. Like, we need to have those conversations.
I think, yeah, definitely. It does feel a little taboo to talk about death. I mean, I feel like most people are pretty comfortable just talking about the idea of, oh yeah, we're gonna die one day. That's just part of life. But to then kind of go into the depths of, kind of what you just mentioned, it's almost like scary. Like, ugh, I don't want to talk about that if it's, I don't know. It's I can get weird about death, especially just because of how I think about my siblings and them dying, and that just terrifies me. Despite knowing it's coming, it terrifies me to lose my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sister,
Absolutely. But the conversation is so needed because you want to give the person the best wishes that they want, their last wishes.
So how would you say you could get over that kind of anxiety that I feel? Because I have no idea.
So I'll use a acronym that I use for anything to really transform. One, you really need to become aware of it, right? You're aware of this anxiety of death, which, by the way, I'll say this: death gives me anxiety too. Not mine, death. I'm pretty at peace with my death. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't feel complete, but damn, I've done a good job. Sorry, I hope.
No, you can swear. It doesn't
Okay.
matter.
It's just part of my vocabulary sometimes, not all the time. But it's like, I've done a pretty damn good job.
Yeah.
I don't feel completed, but if God or whoever's out there or just life in general thinks that I'm done, then crap, I guess I'm done. But my wife, my mom, when I start talking about them, it's almost like, God, please take me first. I don't want to do that in a selfish way.
Yeah.
So, first, to make all the listeners able to learn it is grow.
Mm-hmm.
First, grasp. Grasp. Fully understand and become aware of the anxiety or whatever it is you're struggling with. Really hold it. It's almost like looking at this mic. Look at all of the different perspectives. Oh, it says road here. There's this. If we're just aware of the surface level, we're really not really fully aware of why.
Right.
2, the R stands for realize. What's really painful? In my mind, when I've looked at this anxiety myself and what's allowed me to move forward a lot more efficiently and having those conversations, is that I've understand that the pain of me losing somebody closest to them and not understanding what they actually want, and then just trying to do the best for them and plan at that time, is way more painful than having those conversations now. Because I think of, okay, what's going to be pleasurable after they pass away? That's the other part of realizing is pleasure, pain and pleasure. The aspect of somebody close passing away, me knowing exactly what they want and me being able to give that to them is way more pleasurable than me just guessing.
That's interesting.
And then the O is overcome. How do we overcome? Okay, I'm just going to go have these conversations now. I'm going to take it one at a time. First, maybe I start with myself. I'm going to figure out, do I want to be buried? Do I want to be cremated? And again, you can tie this to any situation. We're tying this to death, which is a pretty dark topic. But really, overcome. Have that conversation with yourself first. Write it down. Go give it to somebody. That's how I first started. I typed everything I wanted down, and it's not official funeral planning, sure, but at least somebody knows my dreams and my wishes.
I want to make a funeral playlist on Spotify that people will play at my funeral.
Do it, 100%, and then you go give it to somebody, and that's how that conversation starts. Because then you can say, "Hey, Mom, this is what I want, but now I'm curious to know what you want."
That's interesting. That's cool. I like that you kind of redirected at them, like, okay, this is what I want, but now what do you want? I like that.
Yeah,
I haven't thought about that. I definitely need to work on that for sure, because not just other people's deaths. I have a hard time with my own death. Like, I definitely have a lot more anxiety about the fact that I'm gonna die or could die at any moment. Really, just I don't know. Like, I think it comes from when I was addicted to weed. Like, because I used to smoke a lot and like do a lot, which I don't anymore. But I started developing like kind of very paranoia like thoughts around death since I had started smoking weed and doing that, and because it just get me so paranoid, and I just start thinking, and I'm like, I don't want to die, like everything's just gone, like I don't have particular afterlife beliefs. I believe there's something, right? I don't, I'm more agnostic, but it scares me to think this whole life, all I've ever known, is gonna be just gone one day. You know? And that I just get a very underlying anxiety about that. I don't spend time like hyperventilating, freaking out, oh, I'm gonna die one day, but there's just an underlying anxiety where I'm like,
that's fair. So, I'll share my perspective, and then maybe it'll shine a light on helping you. You remember how I said I almost felt obligated to keep running the group because of the impact it was making? Mm-hmm. I am driven by death because I know someday I'm going to die. So I feel like I need to do what I can to leave things behind. That's why I'm so passionate about the podcast and books, because I know it's my work that can be left when I'm gone. So that's what it's almost like a blanket. By doing this podcast and by writing the books, it's almost the safety blanket for me to say I'm okay.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I've heard this ideology before of, like, especially in a lot of motivational stuff that I've seen online. I've seen a lot of people just reference, like, your life is gonna move fast. You're gonna die soon, and you can never get back any time you lose or waste. So why let yourself waste that time? Why not just keep going? And I've thought about that a lot, and a problem that I've ran into, that I'm sure a lot of other people have, is despite thinking, okay, I know my life's gonna end one day. I have this anxiety for it, despite knowing that I can't get back a single second of my life, no matter how much time I've wasted. I cannot get back any time. There's not the emotion there, at least not yet, that sparks that in me where it's like, I need to do this. Even though I can think, okay, I need to do this because, time's running fast. There's not the emotion there inside of me that's like, you have to do this. Like, there's nothing screaming at me from inside that's like, I have the screaming voice that says, you have to be successful. You got to be able to quit your 9-to-5 job. You got to do stuff. But there's not one that can relate it to wasting time. Of, you don't have much time. Like, time's going to go pretty fast in your life. And I don't know why. I can't. Like, even no matter how much I think about that, there's nothing that's just is screaming at me to, like, stop wasting time. Because your life's going to end at one point. You can't.
Do you know exactly what you want for your life? Like, take away, imagine, like, envision. And we don't need to go through this. This is your podcast. It's a genuine question, but
no, ask whatever questions you want.
And I'll say to this, the audience can also please go through this same exercise, because I'm gonna assume, based upon all my coachings, that the audience can really relate to this. Is a lot of people are short-term thinking. What about the long term? Me and you, we're in quarter one of our lives.
Right.
Let's say we live to 100 years, which is very likely with where the research is gone, and by the time we get older, dementia is getting
technological
worse.
Breakthroughs and whatnot.
We're in quarter one of our life, man. We're still in quarter one. That means we still got 3 quarters to win. So do you know exactly what you want throughout all your 4 quarters of life?
I mean, I know ultimately where I want to be. Like, I know the freedom I want, financially, mentally, physically. But so I have the vision for sure, if that's what you're asking.
So when I break up a vision, I break up vision in this sense, and not everybody's going to relate to the last step, but I'm going to do it because it's authentic to me. Doesn't mean everybody has to do it. Mm-hmm. There's your past, there's your present, your next steps, your life vision, and then God's plan. I personally believe there's a higher being, whatever that higher being is. I'm still figuring that out personally. Leave that up to you, but I think something out there has a will of what they want me to become and what they want me to achieve. Doesn't mean I have to be very specific that God's like, oh, you want it. There's a checklist every day. No, that concept's there, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can see your life vision, and you can see what you're at now, it's easier to create your next steps, which I think would allow you to start to feel that fire. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So life vision. What is life vision? I break it up into a couple of different subjects. Identity, your spirit, your mind, your body, your relationships, impact, finances, business or career, the lifestyle you want, your material items, your legacy you want to leave, and the skills and the knowledge that you want to build up throughout your life. If somebody took a paper and just wrote every single subject down and took like 10 minutes on every single thing, it doesn't need to be a one sit-down session. From there, you'd be able to say, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going. What are my next 3 steps? What are my next 6 steps in order to create that life? I know what I want my legacy to look like. I know what lifestyle I want to create for my future kids. I don't have kids now, but I know what I want to create for them. And that's what fuels me. Right now, that's what fuels me the most is I know Megan wants kids. And I'm not going to say I don't, because I do. I'd be okay with pushing them over, but that's part of marriage. You got to compromise. She wants kids, 27, starting at 27. 3 years. That kind of fuels my timeline to say, hey, you got 3 years to create this for these kids. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you have that life vision and you see your now, you start to have more timelines that you start to feel a little bit more fueled. I wasn't going quick enough, so I had to make some changes.
That's interesting. I've never thought about it that way because, like, I have my vision. I know where I want to be financially. You know, I know where I want to be mentally, physically, all that kind of stuff. I can see my dream life, but I've never actually broken it down to that level of, like, even, like, okay, how am I going to want to raise my kids, influence them, you know, bring them up? How am I going to want to be when I interact with people, you know, on a day-to-day basis? Like, I actually have not broken my vision down to that level, and I can actually see what you're saying. Dang.
And so now every morning before right when I wake up and when I go to sleep, I go through my vision exercise. I say, hey, I see my past. And you know what? The tragedy, the beauty, it's really served me. And I implement that into my life today. And I tell myself every morning, I don't suffer. I enjoy this journey of my day. I see the fact that something out there has a plan for me.
Mm-hmm.
I see my life vision. I go through it. My identity, my spirit, my mind, my body, my relationships, my impact, my finances, my business, my lifestyle, my material items, my skills, my knowledge, my legacy. And I quickly say that every day. And it doesn't mean that anybody out here listening to this or you need to be that.
Right.
It's a me thing. It doesn't necessarily work to say it would work for you, but I see myself. And I say I see my next steps, and I operate as if I've already accomplished my life vision today. And I walk with that confidence. It's like, I've already written 8 books.
I can see that because, like, for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, there's a lot of habits that I don't do that I should be in for being, you know, to be successful, because I think more, okay, I'll start doing that when I'm successful, or I'll be doing that when I'm successful, but I'd have to stop and think, like, will I get successful if I don't just start doing them? Like all these habits, all these things that you need to be doing, you know, to become successful. I almost think of it, I've always kind of thought it more of like, okay, yeah, I'll eventually be doing those things when I'm getting up there, but it's like, why not just do them now? If I need those habits to be successful, I can't wait to develop them later. I need to develop them now if I want to be successful now.
Sure.
So that's interesting that you put that.
If there's one thing that I could say on this podcast that I want you, me, everybody else to remember, it's a quote that I'll say for the rest of my life. If you're here, you might as well become more so you can achieve more. It never goes the other way around. We always become more, and then we achieve more. We never achieve more by doing the same habits.
Right.
And that's why the life vision is so critical. And I genuinely think if you took the time to create that life vision for yourself, oh man, your life would change. And I think that concept of fear of death would minimize, because then you'll start to live in your future self. So you'll start to break those bad habits. You'll start to create the good habits that you want. And naturally you'll start to walk more with the confidence of, I know where I'm going. Sure, this 9-to-5 job sucks, or man, it sucks that I'm dating 5 chicks and they're just not, just kidding. They're just not wanting to marry me.
If only I could date you dating 5 chicks.
And these short-term struggles or obstacles can be frustrating.
Right.
But I'm confident that for you or anybody else, doing this, if they've created that life vision and they saw that direction that they're walking, these short-term obstacles would become a lot less meaningful in their life.
That's interesting. You've given me like so much I'm thinking about now. It's like, man, I'm speechless. Like I'm genuinely like just trying to process everything. I definitely gotta just spend time like when you're kind of breaking down your vision, you know, what you need to do. Do you do that just like on paper?
I do it personally. I started on paper, but I use Google Drive now, a Word document.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. It's amazing.
I've used Sheets a lot for stuff. Google Sheets, like
and
Excel.
I review my life vision every 6 months. So I review my vision board once a month because goals are an ever evolving thing. Sometimes you got to pivot, whatever.
And our wants are changing too.
Yeah. It's like recently I made huge changes. I didn't quit. I pivoted.
Right.
To go in the same direction I was wanting to, just more efficiently. Mm-hmm. And then I review my life vision once every 6 months. So it's a forever changing document. It's not, our visions will change. Our life visions change. That's okay. I review it every 6 months, and that's where you can make big pivots. Don't wait for December 31st of the new year, before the new year. Woo!
Yeah.
New me, new year. Let's go. Oh, you're done within a month, and then you're going to have the worst year ever because your anxiety's worse because you did nothing to change from the last year, and you keep feeling worse and worse about yourself. Then you're going to get between 30 to 35, where 99% of the people don't change after they reach the year of 30 to 35. They're all subconsciously going through life, and they feel worse about themselves. So we can just say, hey, I'm going to make changes, big changes, twice a year. My personal suggestion is make one on your birthday. That's your year, your next year. It's not the world's year. It's your year. One of my days that I make big changes is my birthday. I said that 6 months, half birthday. And naturally, those are when I make my big changes. And then review your goals once a month.
Yeah, there's back when I was back before I had restarted the podcast, back before I was working out again and all that, and I was at a really low point mentally. I just was not feeling good. I was constantly depressed and whatnot. And, you know, I was talking to somebody, and they were like, well, maybe you should just take off the rest of the year and start fresh next year. I was like, no. I don't want to wait. Like, I think this was one of those times where I did feel like I don't want to wait to feel better to get back into my life, because I knew that my lack of working out, my lack of doing anything productive was ultimately what was dragging me down. And sure. I was thinking, man, I can't wait till the end of the year. That just sounds miserable. That doesn't sound fun at all.
Absolutely.
You know? So I started working out. I kind of focused just on working out, though. Like, I was like, I know my mental health will go up a lot if I just start at least working out. I can do whatever I want, play video games. I can do, you know, hang out with friends or whatever, as long as I at least am working out. I'm going to start there because I felt like I was really rebuilding myself back up. So I started just with working out. I was like, as that became consistent, which it's been a little over 2 months now, within the first month, I was like, I'm feeling so much better. I'm ready to start like just implementing other stuff into my life. And so I kind of dabbled in the podcast again a little bit, just kind of planning some stuff, talking to friends, and I realized I think I'm ready to do the podcast again. So here I am doing the podcast again, and I'm still trying to rebuild myself back up because so right now it's just been pretty much working out, focusing on my regular job to make money, and now the podcast. And it's like, that's it pretty much. It's like, all right, as long as I do these things, focus on work, podcast, and working out, then I can do whatever I want. You know, I can, whatever I want, right? Like, absolutely. I can play games, I can do whatever.
You're negotiating with yourself.
Yeah, and I'm just slowly kind of implementing more and more as I build the habits of working out, making sure I'm on top of work, doing this podcast, you know, and it's
That's what life's about, is negotiating with ourselves. Hey, if I work out, can I play video games? Absolutely yes.
yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna work for 30 minutes and then I'm gonna take a 15-minute video game break. Absolutely. Right. I agree with that 100%. I negotiate with myself.
Sometimes negotiations can go a little bad though. Sometimes I do catch myself lacking, thinking I can cut my workout short today, and then I gotta remind myself, no, you can't, because then you're gonna start doing that more often.
Good.
It gets hard. There's some days where it's really hard to like force myself to fully go through with the workout, and I have caught myself slacking some days, and I'm like, I could have done way better. Next time, like I kind of do this thing where it's like, so usually I'm working out and lifting Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and running Monday to Saturday, and there's some days where I'm like, where I've been like, I don't want to work out today, or I don't want to lift today, like especially if it's a Monday. I'm like, I don't feel like lifting. I'll just run, but I tell myself, okay, if I'm not lifting Monday, that means I gotta lift, because I try to lift 3 to 4 days a week. If I'm not lifting Monday, I have to lift Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because I usually take lifting off on Wednesday. So I have to lift Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. If I ended up taking Monday and Tuesday off from lifting and just ran those days, then, which this is exactly what happened this week. I'm like, okay, now I have to lift. I have no choice, but I have to lift Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, at least. So that's what I ended up doing. So I took pretty much, I only ran Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday I lifted.
Sure. Could I give you a piece of advice on when that inner voice comes in and it's like, hey, cut it. Literally go through that grow process, grasp it. What's that voice really saying? You know what I'm saying? Is the voice saying you can't do this and you need to prove the voice wrong? Like, what is it actually saying? 2, what's the pain of not following through with your word? What's the pleasure of finishing that workout, even though you don't want to? Overcome. How are you going to make sure it happens today? And then 4, go out and win. It can be a quick 30-second process that completely revamps your entire emotions to be completely different. Like if you're like sitting here drowned, you just woke up, you took a shower, and you're like, man, I don't want to work out today. This sucks. It's like, wait, what really sucks? Like what am I really saying right now? If I don't work out, I'm going to feel like crap. 1, I'm not going to feel very confident about myself, and I'm probably going to want to do nothing with the rest of my day because I feel like crap. And if I finish this 30-minute workout, I'm going to feel like I'm on top of the world. So with that in mind, I'm going to work out at this time, whether I feel like it or not. Then the time comes, you go and work out. You feel like you're a freaking killer.
I found myself, despite, here's what's weird. I don't know what you think of this. Despite knowing how it feels to feel like you're on top, working out, you feel good. You feel so good.
Yeah.
But when you have those days where you're like, I don't want to, I don't feel good. Despite knowing, like, okay, I know if I do this, I'll feel better. For some reason, despite having experienced that 100%, knowing exactly how it feels, it's almost like there's been days where I kind of forget that that's true, that I know that I will feel better. I don't know why, but like, despite being able to physically, verbally tell myself, you will feel better if you do this and you'll feel great, there's a part of me that is like almost doesn't believe it despite having experienced it.
So then this is what you want my true answer?
Yeah.
You've attached more pleasure to giving up than pain to keep going. That's really all it comes down to. I mean, awareness, great. Winning is great, but the pain and the pleasure is really what things come down to of whether you do something or not. So that's where you need to really take it in a genuine impact of what is actually more painful, what is actually more pleasurable. Because we only change for 1 of 2 reasons. Either there's enough pleasure or there's enough pain.
Right.
There's no other reason.
sorry, that's just a lot. I'm like relating it to everything I'm experiencing. I'm like, dang, definitely a lot that I could be doing mentally to like flip that perspective and that those thoughts that that I do get that can definitely drag me down.
Absolutely. Bad habits. Crap. Let's be real. Bad habits kind of sometimes can be great.
Mm-hmm.
Weed, drugs, makes people feel good.
Yeah.
Of course it's a bad habit. Crap, makes me lazy. It makes me want to eat sugary foods that taste amazing. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, bad habits can have so much pleasure attached to them. But what's that pain? Because again, that bad habit might have a lot of pleasure. But if we don't have attached enough pain to it, we're going to keep doing it.
Because it's almost like it is that instant gratification. Like if you're always just giving yourself stuff, you're not working for anything, you're just giving yourself that instant pleasure, it's probably not good for you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, that there's a lot that I'm gonna have to think about. I think we gotta get wrapping this up though.
Absolutely.
But, wow.
I could talk with you for hours.
No, for sure. No, yeah, that's great. I have so much to think about now. I'm gonna be like taking notes just from my own podcast as I edit it. Wow. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with me and whoever is out there listening?
No, I thank you for letting me come on. I thank you for letting me support you and the audience, and I mean, really, the pleasure's mine.
Do you want to plug anything, promote your podcast, promote anything specifically?
Relaunching the podcast, so by the time you see this, I'm going to assume it's going to be called Journey to Authenticity, brand new. And the one thing that I will say, I guess just to add in to this, I did a little over 10 interviews over the last 2 months with 20-year-olds, which I don't know who's listening to this podcast. But I'm going to assume that this is applicable to just about everybody in the world. And the one thing that they had in common is that they always wondered whether they were enough. They always wondered, if I do this, is this the right thing? Will people like me? They were basing their entire lives off of what other people thought of them and not just what they wanted for themselves. And my one call out today, if I had one thing, is, as I mentioned before, if you can become more, you can achieve more. Become more. Go live your life for you. And naturally the achievements will come. But just go live life for you. But yeah, new podcast, Journey to Authenticity. It should be launched in about 2 weeks or so.
2 weeks. So is this is it still gonna be the same show, like all the previous podcasts you have recorded and uploaded? Those are still going to be available under Journey to Authenticity, or is it a brand new podcast?
It'll be all the old podcasts will be there as well.
So still the same show,
just rebranded.
Rebranded. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll make it probably 2 seasons, like so people can see the difference. It'll be different ways of asking questions, right?
Yeah. I have a hard time figuring out seasons, like how to make seasons work on this show, because like I don't like, so I looked at, I just Googled it, how many episodes per season on a podcast on average, and it said 10 episodes. And I was like, that just doesn't seem like
it's not enough.
It just seems like there's no if you're just doing just every 10 episodes, there's no purpose to the season. I feel like having a season needs to almost be like almost like a character arc, but on the show, right? So like something significant. There's an era almost, like season 1 is a certain era of the show, and then season 2 will be a new era, like depending on what kind of significant changes that happen. Like for example, maybe even just a change of a set and kind of change of a vibe for the show that could kind of mark a new era of the podcast, and now you can enter a new season. That's kind of how I've always at least looked at it. So like my season 1 that I classified as season 1 is only I think 8 episodes, but then season 2 is like 15 to 20 because it's how it worked out with how things were changing on the podcast.
That's honestly what I'm doing. Is every time I'll relaunch the podcast at some point down the road. Probably it'll be a couple years, but I'm just gonna season 1 is my prosperous life.
I like that.
Season 2 is journey to authenticity.
Yeah.
At some point, maybe there's so many people following along that it's just the Braiden Belnap podcast.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe
but
one day.
The world's a wild place. I don't need to know that right now.
Yeah. Well, you'll get there one day, though.
Absolutely.
Right. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this podcast. If you guys want to follow me on social media, this podcast is just @Out at Reese's on Instagram, or Reese Shalvis for my personal on Instagram. I don't promote the Twitter anymore because I don't do anything with that yet. I want to start doing it, but right now it's kind of somewhere far away.
Sure.
Thank you guys again for watching and listening wherever it is that you're listening, whether it's the morning, the daytime, the nighttime. I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you so much for coming on, Braiden.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Definitely a pleasure.
Absolutely.
You guys have a good one. Peace.
See you guys.